Be the Messenger, the Courageous Hearts Collective podcast, hosted by Dr. Chad Starks.
Peace, power, and purpose, family. Welcome back to Be the Messenger, the Courageous Hearts Collective podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Chad, where healing first, justice always, reform forever is our mantra, our covenant for the Courageous Hearts Collective. We did it, y'all. We did it. We did it. We did it. This is the last mini-sode of the first series of Becoming a Messenger. This is the last mini-sode of using the Be the Messenger framework as a teaching tool. Like I said, I've been using this framework 20, 30 years, more like 20 years, formalized. And all my trainings, workshops, my consulting. But we all know that it was born and bred out of the personal experience and then combined with the former education or lived experience to put us in the room today. So y'all have taken the walk with me. I want to say thank you for trusting me and trusting yourselves and walking on this journey. So we started off. Looking in that mirror, looking internally at our identity. Not questioning, but reconnecting to learning deeply, spiritually, who we are. How do we show up? How do we understand some of those speed bumps that have affected us that we may not have brought the surface to heal from? So I want to say thank you all for taking the courage to trust me and tune in each week and tune in to the shorts and all the phone calls and the comments and the journaling and just the healing. And it's been great personally. Remember, I'm growing with you on this journey. Like we walking. That's what the reform forever is, y'all. This is a continuous life cycle. This is not something you do. This is being. And we're talking real transformation. We're not talking just reform for a program or initiative. We're talking about real transformational work, real changing. So let's recap. Let's recap what this framework is. First one is identity. Identity, it gave us truth, right? Like looking in that mirror and doing some reflecting and owning some assets and some liabilities about ourselves was that was tough. That was the beginning of the internal, right? Culture gave us context, understanding the things that have been passed down and generations and how that impacted us and increasing our awareness of those things and what we need to keep, what we need to shed, work culture, organizational culture. How do we show up in those spaces as well? Gave us context. And thirdly, diversity. And diversity gave us courage. Gave us courage to think differently. Gave us courage to be differently and to live differently, right? And our last one was respect, which is the second mini-sode of the respect pillar today. Respect gives us accountability. Yeah. Respect is the action. The respect is what holds us to those high integrity morals and principles and values of what it's like to be a messenger. It's the cheat code. And the little diagram, the Venn diagram that I created, it's kind of like you start at the end. If you first do the first three right, then you're going to end up with respect. And that's where respect is about taking action. So now that we have healed, the next question, the next part of the journey is, how do we help heal the world? I realized doing this work, when I reflected on my journey in professional spaces, that it was oftentimes a challenge to get people to understand the connection. I'm one of the few scholars or messengers or soul coaches, or some of us even in, community organizational active spaces that actually fuse self-development with social justice. But if you look historically at Dr. King and Gandhi and a lot of their precepts, a lot of their work is about what we all can do to make the world better. And it starts with us. You don't need a platform to be a messenger. You just need your presence. You just need your awareness. Just need your authentic self. Just need to understand that healing first is a survival guide for someone else's story. Your story is a survival guide. And with that understanding, I'm confident that we all can stand up in spaces and share something to help someone else. So we're here now. We're here now with the respect pillar. We're here now with the last mini-sode. And we're here now with the last challenge. The last challenge is, what can we do to help heal the world? So the charge that I would like to ask you all today as we move forward in this mini-sode is, how do I rebuild what was broken? Healing first, just as always, reform forever. Respect is when your healed identity, your uncovered culture, and your expanded diversity all meet and collide into one. Respect is not forgiveness. Respect is not having accountability. And respect is not avoiding your responsibility when you cause harm. There's a lie out there, y'all, that's in our personal lives, that's in structured institutions, that's in systems, and that's the myth of forgiveness. Yeah, we hear that word often, right? Try to forgive. We're supposed to forgive, but it's not as easy as the transaction of the word really sounds. Because when it comes to understanding what forgiveness is about, there's often a conversation that doesn't include respect, right? So just imagine the apology that you get, and one is expected to automatically, instantly forgive you because you said the words. I make it even a better analogy of what I'm talking about. Time heals all wounds. As a criminologist, as a student of life, as a number of intentional speed bumps have been put in my way, as a messenger, as a soul coach, it's a lie. Time does not heal all wounds. Let me share a story when I was in the PhD program at the University of Delaware. I paid for my first semester to be a PhD student out of my pocket. For those of you that aren't familiar with most graduate programs before, research funds right now were taken by federal government in a different way. Most often you did not go get a PhD without the institution funding you to be a teacher's assistant or to be a research assistant in one of the research centers. So they offered some assistance, financial assistance, to relieve that financial responsibility or burden off doctoral students. So there's an investment, there's a relationship. Well, my grades at that point, according to the GRE, the national standards, I didn't meet the threshold for funding. The money had run out. I was well aware of that when I applied, so I prepared to hit the piggy bank just in case, because the goal was to focus, right? You know, that's how I got here as Dr. Starks now, right? I wasn't going to let that speed bump stop me. But anyway, I paid the first semester, and by the time the second or third week came in, I got some offers to be a research assistant, which is why I went there to work as a research assistant so I could learn how to become a researcher to fix things, right? I got some offers to be a teacher's assistant. I was already teaching at Benedict College in Columbia as an instructor, which was part of the impetus to go back to get the PhD so I could have terminal education to teach the babies. So there was a format and there was criteria for how long you should be funded in the programs. And I think I was in year 4 or 5, and the graduate director, who at once was a friend and a colleague, and she really was helping me in a number of different ways. It was reciprocal, right? Because I was bringing lived experiences that could contribute to spaces where most faculty members and didn't have a student like Chad, right? So being a messenger even then. But make this long story short, um, she came to me and said that my funding for the time limit that they agreed to fund PhD students was over. And I shared with her that it was not over because before she got there, I actually paid for my first semester as a PhD student out of pocket. And it was over 10 grand. Yep. Cut the check, right? And we went back and forth. And of course, she refuted that I paid. See, again, the anomaly that they wasn't conditioned to people paying for the PhD programs because people just didn't have the funding. So I was fortunate. So as we went back and forth, everybody getting frustrated, and I went above her to other faculty members to show her the data that I had paid, and she still decided that she wasn't going to extend an apology. So I already referenced, right, that even if you give an apology, there's still some harm that's left there. But she didn't even give the apology. She wanted to move the relationship forward and for me to accept the teacher's assistant position. And I pushed back and I said, no, I deserve an apology. Like, you have wronged me. I had to prove myself. I had to go internalize your pain, your doubt. You're in a position of power, like the alienation of that. No, I deserve an apology. I deserve a sit down. I deserve to sit across the table from you for you to take your responsibility and give me an explanation why you doubted I would lie. And she didn't do it. She wouldn't do it. And I went to the other colleagues and I wanted to make a formal complaint. And they said no. The power dynamics came in. Now, keep in mind, academia is supposed to be the institutions that is not based off hierarchy, that is supposed to have a collective active towards treating everyone fairly and equitable. And they talked me down. They said she is a full professor and it will not matter. And all you could do is do harm to your career if you bring attention to being wronged, disrespected, and mistreated. And that thing stung. It did. It stung. But of course, because of my personal journey and intentional speed bumps, I wasn't going to hand over that unhealed pain and trauma to that institution or to her or anyone else. So I did what I had to do in reflection and awareness, and I used that pain and turned it into purpose. And here it is as a part of the survival guide. But I also prepared other graduate students for that speed bump around the country in some of my speaking engagements, right? Just bringing that awareness to them. But not only I didn't get the apology, and time, we still don't have a relationship because of that. And I wish it was different, but it's not. That's what we call in this space inherited debt. And because I healed but didn't get the apology, there's been no reconciliation. And inherited debt is where you fail to take accountability, where you've done harm, and that harm is on the individual to restore themselves. That person avoided accountability, and the system supported them to avoid accountability. And this happens all the time. Over power dynamics, we forget the human element that a wrong has been done, but I was considered a PhD student, and they were not going to ask the person that was wrong to take accountability and then help heal from it. And of course, I think this could have changed relationships. I couldn't use her as a reference, could get a letter of recommendation because the relationship was gone. So here it is many years later, there is no relationship, and time doesn't heal all wounds. I have healed individually, but professionally, I know that had an impact on my relationship with the university because they were going to back the full professor. Respect, it demands structure. It demands truth. It demands reconciliation. And it demands restoration. Think about your personal lives. Think about how many times you argued with your loved ones, with your partner, with your significant other, with your female girlfriends, male to males, homies to homies. Just think about how many times you got into those arguments and you wake up the next day, a day go by, and you say, my bad. But you never do address the harm that you cause. You don't bring the truth telling to help explain. You just apologize. And that myth of instant forgiveness, we've got conditioned to do it. I've even found myself in years like, yeah, okay, I'm good. Simply because you want to move forward. You don't want to stay in that space because you really like the situation, like the person. And you even start to question whether or not this is even worthy of you being bothered. And you can't have respect or reconciliation without truth. You should give yourself space to say, yeah, I'm working on forgiving you, but can we talk about what caused the pain? It's the truth telling. It's always going to be the reform forever, right? Going back to your identity and knowing what you need so that you don't have to put up boundaries in those spaces. That's what respect is. That's what respect is. And that healed identity and that uncovered culture and that expansion of diversity meet. So you can be empowered to know, how can I rebuild what was broken? So respect, it's going to be about restoration. And we all need it in our personal and professional lives. So let's discount that myth, that lie, that forgiveness or instant forgiveness is real. Healing first, just as always, reform forever. The final stage of respect is about restoration, rebuilding what systems, trauma, silence have broken. In the first minisode on respect, we talked about principled respect, and that was the internal portion of it, right? Here we're talking about restorative respect. That's the external, in action. Think about the conversations that you have not had in your family. Think about the things that silence have allowed you to internalize. How many of y'all need to go have a conversation with mama about something in your life? Some questions that you have. I remember doing the first episode, and one of the listeners, when I was talking about addressing wounds that were caused, and one of the comments I got was, Chad, you can't just snatch the Band-Aid off every wound. Culturally, that's not appropriate. And I appreciate the comment, but I also want to bring the awareness is that's the silence that is continuing to pass down the generational trauma. How many of y'all got some questions that you really need answers to so you can protect the babies that you brought into this world? One of the biggest personal antidotes for me was trying to understand what not to pass down. Can we restore the family system? Can we redo the silence? Can we address the trauma that wasn't intentional? It doesn't have to be intentional. How many of us need to have conversations with old friends, old relationships? Or do we just pray about it and say, as long as I'm good with God, that's what it is? That was said to me one time when I approached Mr. Bunny. God bless the dead. He began reading the Bible a whole lot once he came home in his old age. And I was still pushing, even in my healed version, just to connect, just for some understanding, just for restoration, just for repairing. And again, he pushed back and said that he was getting right with God. Because you hear that, right? The churches say that. Get right, get older before you have judgment day. And of course, it didn't frustrate me because the expected outcome was exactly what it was, right? There wasn't the respect for healing. It was the respect for self. But real messengers create a blueprint for restoration. They create a blueprint for changing the policy. They do. They just don't accept that just the healing is a part of it. It's that we got to restore these systems. We got to reconstruct intentionally those spaces that have harmed us. So the little academic in me came up with an approach. So the first is 4 Ds. It's 4 Ds. And the first one is define. Think about it in self-reflection, right? Define it. Put in labels on whatever the situation is. It just helps you have an understanding of it. Diagnose. What is it? What is the true issue with it? Discernment. How do we go about addressing it? And the last one is decide what to do with it. Healing first, justice always, reform forever. Okay, the restoration policy, the blueprint, the 4 Ds. Decide what's the problem, what was broken, what did you ignore, what did you allow to happen. Diagnose, truth telling. What is it? What are the consequences? What actions you going to take to restore it? Discern, being intentional. What exactly can the consequences be? Be intentional. What do you expect the outcomes to look like? And the last one, decide. Decide your level of commitment. You can use the blueprint. And the other option, if the blueprint doesn't work, then you walk away with integrity. Yeah. You walk away with integrity because this is your biblical vocation. And you can't let people divide your spirit because as a messenger, you have work to do. I've said before that I've had to make some decisions using this blueprint. I've taken it through my system, and I've made some very intentional decisions that this isn't the space for me, especially in higher ed. I was on faculty at a predominantly white institution, and I did just this. Actually, it happened when I went on my first soul adventure, and one of my soul guides asked me, why was I there trying to get old white men to not be racist? And she said that it is dividing your soul, your spirit. And we talked about how my ancestors would be upset that I was investing my skills, my blessings from God in a vicious cycle of self-induced pain. And that conversation stuck with me. And it really influenced me to make a decision about being in that toxic environment that was asking me to show up as an imposter, losing respect for myself, losing respect for my purpose, losing respect for the work that I know that my message was conveying. I was asked to make people comfortable because of my presence and energy. And then I ended up walking away with integrity, knowing that I did the right thing for me and for my divine calling. What is yours? How many times have you made excuses after using, consciously or unconsciously, the restoration policy, the 4 Ds? And you say, well, I'm going to stay because. I used it as a child. Didn't know it was a blueprint of healing for justice, but I used to ask the question at home all the time. Better leave while we stand. because it's your daddy. How many of y'all stay and use the reasoning for, I'm staying because of my children. I'm staying because I'm uncomfortable to start over. I'm staying because I need this check to pay my mortgage. You ever thought that that was the opportunity there to restore your faith in that moment that you deserved? You deserved a different opportunity because someone thought that the apology was going to be instant forgiveness and they didn't have the accountability, that you didn't hold them accountable for the truth telling, to go to the root cause of the pain that they initiated, that they were cultivating. Sometimes you have to leave in order to maintain respect. How many of us are in relationships now, be it professional or personal? This is a tough time right now, and I know it. I'm not trying to tell anybody to walk off their jobs without a plan. Not telling you to walk out of relationships, because we need more unity now than we have in a number of spaces, because we're divided. But does that mean you sacrifice your respect to do internalized pain to your spirit and your soul for a transactional outcome? There's so many other ways, folks. There's so many other ways for you to heal, for your culture to be uncovered, and for you to expand the definition of diversity and make that conscious choice to use the respect pillar to navigate your life. Okay. We did it. We did it. Of course, if you will accept this challenge, I will be greatly appreciative. Messengers, I want to hear from you. Can you share with me how the first Becoming a Messenger series has impacted the way you live, the way you lead, and the way you love? Put them in the comments in this YouTube. DM me, be the messenger _ Call me, text me, if you personally have access. I really would appreciate the feedback, how this 8 mini-sode plus 1 long form messaging that I've done, that you've allowed me to walk with you. Tell me how it impacted those 3 spaces. How you live, how you love, and how you lead. Series 2, Being a Messenger. We'll continue with the solo podcast style. Won't be as much lecture style teaching in this way. It's going to be about more application in real life in real time. So much happening right now, and I guarantee you all that have walked with me, I bet you could intersect the 4 constructs of the framework into some real life situations where we're going to do it. We're going to pull some of these Band-Aids off and systems in real world in real time. So to end, I want to say thank you. I am grateful. And of course, if this message resonated with you, please share, please comment, please tell your folks that the boy got something, because he's going to be here. We coming. Series 2 is going to have the same format. We're going to have a long form for about 60 to 90 minutes to start us off, and we're going to have 8 mini-sodes to follow. I will say that we will take next week to do something a little different. So tune in. You'll get a warning about it or an alert. But we're going to start series 2 2 weeks from this episode. So 2 weeks from now, we'll be introducing the first long form of Being a Messenger series. Again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. I think we're up to 174 subscribers. I would like to have 200 before the end of the year. So tell your cousins, tell your mom and them, tell your auntie, tell your uncles. Share it with your colleagues, your friends, your co-workers. I know some of you have already, but I'm asking that you do. And if any of this series has sparked anything, I have been getting some calls. Some people are ready for some coaching. If you're ready to level up, if you're ready to level up and not really sure if I'm the person for you, invest in the book, Courageous Hearts. And if you're ready, you got some programs that you need some coaching with, some mentoring, holla at me. I appreciate you walking with me, allowing me to live in purpose and really step into my calling. Be courageous, be authentic, be love, be the messenger. See you in series 2.